We love this first segment because we're able to take part of our wisdom and then part of the wisdom we've gained from other people to give you marriage strategies. So, this is our marriage strategy of the week.
So I did a poll on our Instagram page, and you can follow us at Moremost Forever on Instagram for a lot of other great tips. But I did a poll about what are some of the biggest challenges that you're facing in your marriage now, and I put on, I said money, parenting, sex, and then communication, and everybody seemed to jump on the communication right away. So,
Right.
and we're actually writing a book on communication, so we're excited that we're going to be able to give you guys a resource that's going to help you with that aspect. But I was thinking about this strategy of the week, and I thought that this would be very helpful because this is something that we tell a lot of couples that we counsel. So one tip that you can apply when communicating with your spouse is in conversation, listening to understand and not listening to respond. So that will be your strategy of the week. Because oftentimes when we are in conversation, we are quick to process the information that we hear so that we can put up a defensive front and respond in the most defensive way possible instead of, stepping back and saying, what is this person saying? And in the case of being married, you have to get to a place where you start understanding your spouse's perspective because they did grow up from a different background. Their upbringing may be different. Even their vocabulary, just like for me, is different than for Ryan because he grew up here in this culture. I grew up in a Ukrainian culture, so even some of the words that may seem like, okay, the definition is the same, but oftentimes we may perceive words a little bit differently. And even life. So it's very important to start kind of putting yourself in your spouse's shoes instead of like right away, okay, what are they saying and how can I throw the best jab at them? You know what I'm saying?
Or how can I one up them? Or how can I win
Yeah.
the argument? Oftentimes we've said, what is winning if you haven't won the heart of your spouse? You might have won that argument and you might be quote unquote right about whatever you're disagreeing about. But have you really won if you have pushed your spouse away in the process? And I think one of the greatest tools that we can have as individuals is self-awareness.
Mm-hmm.
Most people don't have self-awareness, and it takes a lot of intentional effort to stop in the middle of, a conversation, pause, and look at yourself from the outside in.
Yeah.
As if you're like a fly on the wall, listening into the conversation. What would it sound like if you were listening to someone else's conversation that looked just like yours? Would you be pleased with the way that you responded to your spouse? And so, like Victoria said, if you're self-aware enough, you'll be able to understand, okay, in this moment, I'm responding in a defensive way, in fighting against my spouse, for whatever reason, when I should be listening to understand.
Mm-hmm.
Do I truly understand what they're telling me? Or am I just sitting here formulating a response to defend myself, to protect myself? Am I pulling from a context that has nothing to do with this marriage? Am I pulling from a past relationship in the way that I was raised, how my father treated me, how my mother treated me? And am I projecting onto my spouse because of that experience? Being self-aware is going to help you communicate more effectively with your spouse, but also to be able to show the love of Christ to them.
Mm-hmm.
Even when you don't agree,
Yeah.
to be able to say, I may not agree, but at least I understand. Well,
Yeah.
that's one step closer to agreement. And at the end of the day, you may not agree on all of the nuances of a particular subject, but the ultimate goal is to agree about the path forward. And in your conversation with one another, the first step towards that is learning how to listen to understand and not listening to respond.
That's right. And I just wanted to finish this strategy of the week with this. Oftentimes people would ask, well, I don't understand. So how do I begin to learn how to understand when somebody's giving me a conversation? like, how do I proceed with that type of communication? We often talk about wrestling with ideas. And one of the tips that we presented a few weeks ago was echoing, where we say, so I'm hearing you say this and this and this, and then giving them a chance to respond to you and say, no, that's not what I'm saying. So I feel like that strategy also would help you to start kind of understanding a little bit more, but also help your spouse to be able to express themselves and say, hey, you're not hearing what I'm saying, you know?
You can pair these strategies that we're
Yeah.
giving you, and you can build upon them. Also, if you're seeking to understand, think of it like, a science equation or a math problem, especially for the men out there. Ask questions, and not in an accusatory way, but really a genuine pursuit of knowledge. Like, how did my spouse get to this conclusion, right? And ask the questions that you wouldn't think to ask, right? And maybe you need to step away if the conversation gets too heated in order to come up with the right questions. So that's our marriage strategy of the week.
Yeah, we hope you apply it and give us some feedback, how it's working for you guys.
That's right.